I don't know about you, but I hate white people. Aren't they the worst? Down with the white man. Am I right? In fact, there wouldn't be such a white person problem if it wasn't for all these white people. Now, I have no fear of being canceled for these remarks. It is well within the acceptable public discourse to express hatred, wish for the downfall, and maybe endorse, a little light genocide of a race of human beings, as long as it's the right one. If I changed those words slightly and said any other skin color, I wouldn't even finish the sentence before I was thrown inside a maximum security cancel cell. Now, I will start this by admitting to you, I am an absolutely terrible white person. I don't have white pride. In fact, I think there's like a pretty old book that says pride is a sin that you should stay away from. I don't even know. I can't even remember. I don't care about white culture. I care about American culture, but white culture, I don't even know what it is, nor do I actually care to find out. And I assigned 0% of my personality and character to my whiteness. I don't put people into groups based on skin color. And I certainly don't judge people based on skin color either. Do you know what that's called? It's called, did you say racism or prejudice? Because those fit too. But what I was going to say was collectivism. Racism is collectivism, and I'm an individualist. Racism bad, collectivism bad, individualism good. All of this is to say that I find no passion or reason in defending white people as a group. I don't really care about comments made by moronic athletes or actors made against white people because, to paraphrase Eric July on this very program, racism without statism is just a bad idea. Clearly, however, Nick Cannon stepped far over the line of what is acceptable within public discourse when talking about Jews in his comments earlier this week.
When we go as deep as the Rothschilds, centralized banking, the 13 families, the bloodlines that control everything, even outside of America. They want to silence Minister Farrakhan, and they want to throw that. We are having hate speech when it's never hate speech. When it's not, you can't be anti-Semitic when the Semitic, when we are the Semitic people. When we are the same people that who they want to be. That's our birthright.
That's our birthright.
Now, look, I have a long-standing policy that no one should be fired for the stupid crap they say. Now, that policy will allow a few really terrible people to remain employed. I'm willing to risk that. It's better than what we're currently doing, at least, destroying people's lives over nothing. If you want examples of that, watch Stu Does the Cancel Culture Olympics from yesterday. Cannon was let go from his gig on America's Got Talent, but so far Fox is keeping him on Masked Singer, which may show that Fox really hates Jews, but definitely shows that both networks have terrible programming. But what most certainly did not get him fired was his comments about white people. They were not even mentioned in the statement about Cannon getting fired. And they were not even mentioned in Cannon's apology. Literally, no one cares. Perhaps you haven't even seen these comments yet. Well, get ready. Let's start it with racism, but from the scientific vantage point.
When we talk about the power of melanated people, when we talk about who we really are as guys and understanding that our melanin is so powerful and it connects us in a way that the reason why they fear black, the reason why they fear is because the lack that they have of it. So then when you see what, Dr. Francis C. Welsing talked about is that fear in that
just genetic annihilation,
deficiency of when you have a person that has the lack of pigment, the lack of melanin, that they know that they will be annihilated. So therefore, however they got the power, they have the lack of compassion. That melanin comes with compassion. Melanin comes with soul. That we call it soul. We soul brothers and sisters. That's the melanin that connects us. So the people that don't have it are and I'm going to say this carefully.
I have terrible news. He did not say this carefully. By the way, this is my favorite part by far. This is him speaking carefully. I just love this. Before we move on, a quick summary of what was just said, because it went by pretty fast. Melanin makes people's skin dark. White people fear black people because they don't have melanin, because if we don't have pigment, we know will be annihilated. This is, for lack of a better word, bonkers. But to be fair, he hadn't started speaking carefully yet. So here you go. It's a quick message from Careful Cannon.
That's the melanin that connects us.
Right.
So the people that don't have it are a little, and I'm gonna say this carefully, are a little less. And where the term actually comes from, because I'm bringing it all the way back around to Minister Farrakhan, to where they may not have the compassion or the when they were sent to the mountains of Caucasus, when they didn't have the power of the sun, the sun then started to deteriorate them. So then they're acting out of fear. They're acting out of low self-esteem. They're acting out of a deficiency. So therefore, the only way that they can act is evil. The only way they have to rob, steal, rape, kill, and
fight or flight.
in order to survive.
Wow, that was almost too careful, Nick. I'm glad he's speaking carefully, or I might think when he's saying white people are a little less, that means he thinks they're inferior. To the untrained ear, that may have sounded like the unleashed ramblings of an insane person. So let me translate as I speak the unleashed ramblings of an insane person fluently, as you know if you watch this show. According to Minister Farrakhan, he said in his most careful tone of voice, white people were sent to the mountains. We didn't have the power of the sun, so we started to deteriorate. And since whiteys are so weak, we act out of fear, and the only way we can act is evil. Remember when President Trump was trying to talk about the border and the crime on the border, and he said some illegal immigrants were rapists? Big controversy, remember that? Well, Nick Cannon then goes on to say that all white people genetically are forced to rob, steal, rape, kill, and fight. And then the other douche says, exactly. For one more little clip here from this incredibly careful conversation, listen.
So then these people who didn't have what we had, and when I say we, I speak of the melanated people.
Right.
Oh, okay, good.
They had to be savages. They had to be barbaric. Because they're in these Nordic mountains. They're in these rough, torrential environments. So they're acting as animals.
Right.
So they're the ones that are actually closer to animals. They're the ones that are actually the true savages.
Oh, well, now he's explained it pretty well. Some might say that calling an entire race of people true savages and evil animals is the slightest bit racisty. Others might say that it was just an example of extreme carefulness. I don't know which one it is, but I can tell you what it isn't. It wasn't worth mentioning by anyone in the media at all. No one cares that this guy just called 243 million people in the United States evil, savage animals. This is not Deshaun Jackson, who probably had never even heard of Jews until last week. Cannon has what he thinks is a detailed understanding of the teachings of Farrakhan, one of the worst people in the world, a vicious, racist, anti-Semite, and genocidal maniac who has far more followers in Hollywood and Washington, D.C. than anyone wants to acknowledge. But none of this was worth mentioning by the media. And none of it was worth apologizing for. In fact, after the initial apology to try to keep his money, Cannon doubled down, blaming his firing on the systemic racism of the system that I guess made him say all that crap. From Facebook, for Viacom to be so deceptive is no surprise. They have been mistreating and robbing our community for years, underpaying talent on their biggest brands. NBC threatened and mistreated me for years, but I was the bigger person, and I abandoned an 8-figure salary on their #1 hit show, America's Got Talent. Okay, so they were robbing your community and underpaying talent, but you also had an 8-figure salary to host a show that everyone is watching for the singers and the judges. Not you, them. Got it. He then went on to try and milk the current crisis to his advantage. Still, I honestly can't believe that Viacom has such poor counsel that would allow them to make such a divisive decision in the midst of protests and civil uprising within our current pandemic. Truly an unwise decision. Nothing classier than a good old threat built on the back of hundreds of thousands of dead people and racial strife. Perfect. Here's how he ended the Facebook post. But now I am the one making demands. I demand full ownership of my billion-dollar Wild and Out brand. Wow, that sounds great. That I created. And they will continue to misuse and destroy without my leadership. I demand that the hate and backdoor bullying cease. And while we're at it, now that the truth is out, I demand the apology. No real need to capitalize apology there, but that's not really important right now. So how does all of this happen? We know it's wrong for Nick Cannon to be viciously anti-Semitic. We can all agree on that. But why is it completely fine for him to call an entire race of people evil savages and animals? Some of it is based on a concept that Chris Rock outlined pretty well back in 2008.
Yeah, that's the first time in the history of the world where white men have to watch their tongue. And white guys don't worry about it. That's how life works, man. That's how life works. Sometimes the people with the most have to shut up and let other people talk about them. That's how life works. That's right. Sometimes the people with the most get to say the least, and the people with the least get to say the most. So if you want to say most, get rid of some of your.
Lots of beeps in there, but look, his point, maybe the people with the least stuff get to say the most stuff, and people with the most stuff get to say the least stuff. And maybe there's some truth to that. Regardless of skin color, I guess every middle-income person in the country is free to call Jeff Bezos an evil, earth-destroying vampire. But can you imagine if Jeff Bezos was caught on camera yelling at some poor schlub, "Get a job!" Wouldn't go over so well. All this might be true to some degree. However, this is not something to strive for. This is not aspirational. Picking random groups of people you don't like and blaming all your problems on them is not a healthy approach. It's not clever. It's not empowering, and it's also not true.